Hi, welcome to another episode of This Week in Evansville. I'm Johnny Kincaid. Thanks for taking a little time to join us here. Be sure that you hit the subscribe button so you get updates on when a new episode comes along. And joining me this week, this is going to be a lot of fun. Robb Myers is here.
Hello, Johnny.
I am glad to have you here, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
The last time that you were here, we weren't doing the camera thing. So,
yeah.
Robb is well, we've known each other for a good number of years on the political scene, and Robb's always a lot of fun with his input on what's happening politically. The big thing that we're focusing on today is going to be, of course, the mayor's race, and this is going to be a year where I want the popcorn concession because we have got some really interesting things already starting to brew in this race, and it's just going to keep getting better and better. Now we started with a free-for-all brawl that's already eliminated a couple of candidates. The first one to officially leave the race, almost as quick as he entered it, was Gabe Whitley, otherwise known as Honest Gabe. And he's now in Indianapolis doing some political things up there. And so we want to wish him well there. And so now that he's out of the race, then the next two to fall, they fell together. And they fell because of a state law in Indiana.
Yeah, Republican Kane Helmer was removed from the ballot, as well as Democrat Brian Alexander. Both were removed from the ballot, and it's interesting. There's a strange law in Indiana that there's an opportunity that if a candidate has not voted in the two previous primaries, it is the choice of the party as to whether they want to allow them to remain on the ballot. Both of these gentlemen did not vote in the two previous primaries, and the Republican Party of Vanderburgh County and Democrat Party of Vanderburgh County both made the decision to remove them from the ballot.
And for clarification's sake, I mean, that's part of the vetting process for candidates, and we get that. You have to, otherwise you could have somebody just jump back and forth between parties, right, depending on whatever's convenient for them. But in the actual technicality is that they have to have voted for their party in the last two primaries that they voted in. It's a little fuzzy, and there's been some controversy about it too, because what we're also doing with this particular law is we're not specifying that you had to have voted, just that you have to have voted for your party. And some people are seeing that as being an unconstitutional issue, because if you can run for office at 21, how will you possibly have the opportunity to vote in two primaries prior to that?
Yeah, I find that interesting, and I wonder if it'll ever come up. I'm sure it will. But yeah, a 21-year-old candidate announcing that they want to run, and the party looks at it and says, well, they couldn't have voted in the two previous primaries for the party because they couldn't vote until they were 18. I find that very interesting that rule exists.
And for me, the big downside of all of this is the amount of power that it puts in the hands of the county party chair. That those chair people have all the power in this situation, and the rank and file within the party, the PCs within the party, or the other members of the board don't have that ability. Only that county chairman has the ability to leave somebody on the ballot or take them off.
It seems like a lot of power for the party to be able to determine which candidates make the ballot or not. Now, whether or not some of these people may consider running as an independent, I guess they would have that option. They could do so. Do they have to have a bunch of signatures or anything to get on the ballot, or can they just go and file, say, I'm independent, I'm on the ballot?
I believe that they have to have a petition to do it. But I'm not absolutely certain on that.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to check into. But a little bit about Brian Alexander, the Democrat who ran. He had the most online presence as far as having some kind of information out there about what his platform was. There's a bunch of information on Reddit. There is some information on LinkedIn about Brian. Appears that he used to work for Liberty Credit Union, formerly Evansville Teachers Credit Union, and now works at Spectrum Reach, which is the advertising arm locally here for Spectrum. Kane Helmer, the Republican, I could not find really much of anything online for Kane, so I couldn't find a lot of information. It looked like he may work at an area retail store, but I really couldn't find a ton of information, which kind of tells me if they didn't have some kind of website or some kind of Facebook page, hey, I am Helmer for mayor, of how serious maybe they really were about getting into this and going deep.
Yeah, and it's a big commitment to make, obviously, but yeah, you want to see that commitment right off the bat, which is what we're seeing play out with the candidates that remain. Now that the free for all round one is over, and we've had 3 candidates go to the wayside. Now we're left with 3. The Democrats, and I believe this is actually party strategy, I really think it is, that they now have nothing but uncontested races. So, first of all, do you show up to cast a ballot or not?
If you're a Democrat voter in this area, what motivates you to go out and vote when there really is nothing to oppose? There's not a big reason to go out there and vote for the Democrat ticket coming up this primary.
Right. And strategically, I understand that for that, especially the seat of mayor, where they'd really want to make that happen. On the Republican side, you've got 2 very different folks running with different camps. But then when you get down into the city council, and we'll talk more about the 2 Republican candidates here in a second, but then when you get further down into the ballot and you start looking at those city council races, there aren't very many seats that the Republicans have even floated anybody to go after, much less having a contested run.
And that's surprising. They historically, at least in the last 10 years, they've always seemed to want to push some kind of candidate to oppose those positions. I was kind of surprised. One thing I may mention, if we could back up just a tiny bit, there allegedly is a Libertarian, Michael Doherty, who had mentioned in February that he was running. They're waiting for the Libertarian local board meeting to happen for their party, and I'm sure after that it'll be officially announced. We know historically, Libertarians don't fare always so well. I know this personally from a couple experiences. But it will be a 4th candidate out there, and I'm curious to see how that's going to impact anything, if at all.
All right, and the Republicans will have a chance in those city council seats where there is not a candidate currently. They do have the opportunity to place a candidate into those races up until somewhere in July, I believe it is. And the party has been out recruiting people for some of those seats, and I know of at least one person that's looking at jumping into the 1st ward race. And we'll just wait and see whether how many other people can come forward and decide they want to jump into that arena.
That ward was held by Dan McGinn for McGinn, right? Yeah, for years, and I was
Jeff
shocked.
Canisi before that.
Okay,
so
it was a long time, and for them to not have a presence there is pretty shocking. I don't think they're ready to abandon that ward just yet.
I don't think so either. It's been a strong Republican ward for, like we've said, forever.
Yeah.
So I would suspect that the party's going to recruit somebody to come into that particular seat. Now we get down to the nitty gritty, and we talk about who the survivors are in this race, and this is where it's going to start getting fun because the race is heating up. We'll talk about Stephanie first because she is uncontested, and we're not going to devote huge amounts of time. Right. But first of all, what I think would be interesting to do is just take a listen real quick here to Stephanie. This is very, very recent. She's rallying the troops with her volunteers, getting her volunteers fired up.
I'm going to go through all the problems and challenges this community faces because we know what they are. We know we've got crime. Yep. We know we got to do a better job educating and supporting our kids. Yep. We know we got to repair roads and streets. Yep. We got to do better jobs with our parks and activating them and making them spaces for gathering and build up a sense of community, right? We know all this, right?
Yeah.
But we got to do the work to get it done.
All right, so for Stephanie on the Democrat side, she's talking crime, she's talking education, she's talking roads and infrastructure, and she's talking parks. What else have you found on Stephanie?
Well, I mean, if we look at a little bit of her history, we know that currently she serves as the executive director for the Evansville Children's Museum. She's been in that role since 2010, which coincidentally is the same year that she was elected to county council as a representative for Vanderburgh County. We know that she has a degree from Kent State and also a master's from the University of Evansville in Health Services Administration, which she earned in 2002. What I found a little interesting is it's not readily available as to what was going on between 2002 and 2010. There's a little bit of information on our website, but I'd like to know more about what was in the middle there prior to becoming the executive director of the Children's Museum. Seems like a role that you kind of have to be groomed into. I'd like to know a little bit more, but her website is great. I mean, it really is. There's a lot of good content there, a lot of good information about her platform, talking about mental health, talking about affordable housing, education. She seems to be big on trash pickup. Apparently, there's a big issue with trash pickup in the area that I'm not aware of, but she goes into that on her website quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. It's and as this race continues to kind of shape up, what's going to be really interesting to see is whether those issues start to shift a little bit, because in what I've always noticed about candidates, and it's almost every office, I'm not going to pick on mayoral candidates here, but almost everybody running for office says, well, I want to build more roads. And it's the person who's running for, some office that will never see a budget for roads, right? But they'll make that part of their platform. And we see this, that the practical side sometimes is overlooked when they talk about things. Affordable housing, yeah, we need to do some things about affordable housing, absolutely. How much of that is in the mayor's purview?
Exactly.
Outside of setting up a business atmosphere that allows people to make some money by providing affordable housing, right? Mental health issues. Again, the mental health issues have traditionally fallen under the state as far as the responsibility goes. So those are great sounding pieces of the platform, but are they really truly what the mayor is going to be able to do anymore?
And I think what we'll see is as these campaigns start to go after each other a little bit more, I can easily predict that the Republican side is going to bring up the immediate question, hey, great ideas, great ideology, how are you going to pay for it? What specifically do you want to happen? How much do you want to spend on it? Where's the money coming from? Right. And how big of a problem is it really? Show me some real numbers. How many people are lacking affordable housing? How many people are having mental health issues? And they're going to want to see some numbers. So I hope Stephanie's ready to answer those questions.
Right. And when she talks about the subject of education, I've personal viewpoint here. I think it would be absolutely wonderful and maybe they see it as meddling, but I would love to see the mayor show up at school board meetings.
Absolutely.
That education component is so important to the future of the city, and that I'll use Lloyd Winnicky as an example. Lloyd has unlimited energy, and he does these 80, 90 hour work weeks, right? It does everything. But that education component is so important that it would just seem to reason that if you're going to put in an 80-hour work week, you might write in a little time every other week to go to a school board.
See what's happening, at least be understanding what's going on at those school boards. I agree.
All right, so on the Republican side, this is where we have a contested race in the primary. We've got Natalie Rascher and Cheryl Musgrave. And should we talk about the elephant in the room?
I think we have to.
we got no choice. We've got to talk about this. Here's the thing. There is... I'm trying to think of the nicest way to put this, but okay, let's just get it out there. There's some bad blood between the mayor and Cheryl Musgrave. I'm not certain about the origins of all of this. I'm not sure that the origins necessarily matter. I just know that between the two of them, there is not a love affair, and we have already seen that pop up in the course of this campaign, because Natalie Rascher has the full support of Mayor Winnecke. And in
the previous podcast, Johnny, you went into the political donations and what you saw, and this is not a secret. I mean, this is public knowledge. There's financial support there, and that's not just a guess. It's not a rumor. And then we're seeing news articles in the Courier and Press, one that you shared with me a couple weeks ago. Just amazing. I mean, it is no secret that there's bad blood, and there's no secret of who Mayor Winnecke wants to support for this, and very vocal against Cheryl, which I'm surprised at. I was surprised to see this this early and before the primary season really starts.
It's an omen of what's to come. It really is. All right. So the first big gauntlet that got thrown down on this thing was a handwritten note that was sent to a donor by Carol McClintock, by Mayor Winnecke's wife. And the note from Carol said something to the effect of, Cheryl will be really bad for Evansville.
Yeah, I want to make sure we get it right. So we to paraphrase, I think we can get ourselves in trouble. We don't want
that's
that.
True. Yes.
But this is per the Courier and Press article a while back, and let me find the exact verbiage here. Please take a quote. Please take a minute to reflect on how really terrible Cheryl will be for our city that you helped build. So, I mean, that's the exact words per the Courier and Press report. Very strong words. I was shocked. I was shocked that would come out that way.
Mm-hmm. And the as I've heard it, the note was left on a photocopier.
Yeah.
And oops, and then got leaked out from there. Then, as the follow-up to that, round two was a letter that Cheryl Musgrave, I'm guessing that Cheryl is the one who leaked this particular letter. I'm not absolutely certain, but it's a letter from Cheryl to Lloyd Winnecke dealing with the Joint Building Commission. And there's a vacancy for the building commissioner. And Cheryl says, Dear Mayor Winnecke, since my prior letter to you requesting a meeting to discuss the selection of a new building commissioner, multiple staff departures, and disruption of operations in the building commission has been brought to the attention of the county commissioners. On behalf of my fellow county commissioners, I'm making a second request for a meeting with you to discuss the following. 1, selection of new building commissioner. 2, staffing management process and procedures. 3, morale of employees within the department. And 4, the proportional disparity between the services received by the county in relation to the financial contribution to the department made by the county. Without meaningful collaboration in the operation of this joint department, the viability of continued participation of Vandenberg County remains problematic.
Well, what I find interesting, if I'm correct, this position of building commissioner is appointed by the mayor or hired by the mayor, right, not by county commissioners. They have no say in, they can have influence, but they cannot just choose somebody and force somebody into that position. It has to be the mayor that puts this together. But from what you can hear with the letter, there are contributions that the county makes from their budget to this department. So they feel they want to have some say in what's going on and they want somebody in the role. And
members of the commission, there are appointed positions from the county commissioners as well in that commission. So, frustration there,
but why is the position still open? That
should be the question.
That is the question. Why? Is it intentional? Is it they can't find the right candidate? Is it a political move? It'd be kind of nice to find that out.
Yeah, it very definitely would be. Now, we want to take the website that Natalie Rascher has done.
Yes.
is actually really good.
I thought it was great. I'm rather critical when it comes to campaign websites, but boy, it really was full of a lot of content, good content. You get to feel from her experience. You know, she's you can find this on her website and on LinkedIn, of course, but she works for a company called Clifton Larson Allen, national company that does CPA consulting. Her role is to be a recruiter for CPAs regionally. She's been there less than a year from what it looks like. Prior to that, she was at Kemper CPA, and she was at USI prior to that, in a position at Deaconess before that. What I find interesting is that there's no political experience whatsoever. And that may or may not be a good or bad thing, but we know that she ran for city council recently. I believe it was in Missy Mosby's ward.
Missy Mosby's ward, and most importantly, this was 4 years ago, she made it a really close race. And to come in with Missy, who works hard at her job. I mean, she really does. I don't agree with her on policy, but as far as a city council person, Missy works.
And she is way involved in the community. I mean, she does a lot of good things. You can't see her. You can't go anywhere without seeing her. If there's an event, a charity event, or a community event, she is there. She's wearing her bright yellow, and you know she's around.
And Natalie almost stole that seat 4 years ago.
Pretty amazing.
So there's some, I can understand why she would be the Republican Party, one of the kind of heir apparents within the party, that she's the young up-and-comer, that even if she doesn't win this mayoral race, she's committed to the community. She's going to be around.
That's
and you're going to see her popping up elsewhere if she doesn't make it through this primary.
I definitely agree. And that's probably why she was appointed to the Vanderburgh County Alcohol Beverage Board. Natalie was, and she served on the Greenway Advisory Board and the Burdette Park Board. So has to have some type of involvement to understand the politics. So, I mean, I don't want to say she has zero experience, but zero as an elected official.
Exactly. Here's just a little bit of her from another podcast that she did called the Unbelievable Life podcast, where she shares a little bit of that vision for the community.
So one thing that really started to resonate with me whenever I started this campaign was the idea that we need to make sure that we're taking a neighborhoods first approach. And so whenever I say that, I want you to think back, 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50 years ago, whenever you were a kid and you're outside. Maybe you're doing something you shouldn't have been doing and you're in the neighbor's yard, or, you're messing with someone's pet or whatever it may be, climbing the tree, you weren't supposed to. A neighbor comes out and they see you, and what happens? They call your mom, they call your dad, and they say, Susie Q down the street is climbing that tree again, and I know she's not supposed to be doing that. That right there is a perfect example of what our community has been in the past and what I want to see happen again. I want our kids to be able to go outside and to play, and for the neighbor down the street to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, there's something going on here. Or maybe there's a car that's driving by and it's canvassing a neighborhood, and we know that it's not a car that's in that specific neighborhood. And we start to pick up on Crime Watch and maybe some crime prevention, all through this idea that our neighborhoods are first.
Natalie's whole thing here is talking about neighborhoods first, that her vision is to build the city's strength coming out of neighborhood initiatives.
I imagine this has got to be very challenging in her position to throw a platform together without saying, hey, the current mayor who's ready to leave office did a bad job. Yeah. And at the same time, you have to still say that there's room for improvement. So it's got to be a real delicate situation that she's in of hey, I want to do things better. Not that they're really, really bad, but I want to try to make things better in our community.
Yeah. And if, all right, here comes another one of those difficult truths, right? If Mayor Winnecke had long enough coattails, he would have brought a bunch of Republicans onto the city council.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he doesn't have those conservative coattails necessarily, which he's got a huge war chest, He's got a lot to be able to contribute to Natalie, but there's also some, you're right, that she has to tread lightly on some things because rightfully there should be some disagreement with the current mayor and some things that she would want to do different. So, yeah, I don't envy the position.
Especially being in this primary situation, because it has to be a different enough platform than Cheryl Musgrave's platform to make it interesting and to get the attention of the voters.
Mm-hmm. All right, now the advertising is going to start up in this primary too, and so as we make a transition here to start talking about Cheryl Musgrave, I want to share. She just has out. This is just hit on YouTube. Cheryl's campaign ad, and I'll get your reaction as it runs here.
Great cities aren't built by accident. It takes leaders who make the right decisions. That's what Cheryl Musgrave delivers. Her record, a well-deserved pay raise for sheriffs, AT&T's $40 million broadband investment, new roads, better parks, and helping tornado victims recover. While some politicians just talk, Cheryl Musgrave rolls up her sleeves and gets to work. Strong, conservative, proven, trusted. Cheryl Musgrave for mayor.
Did you get a load of that shot of the back of the head of some politicians and they really did a good job of making it look like that's the back of Natalie's head.
Yeah, and you can tell it was very clever. There's some things in there that the AT&T infrastructure situation. I really don't know much about that, and I should know about that. I've served on the IT board, the IT advisory board for the city and the county for over 5 years now, and I'm not aware of what that is exactly. I think I should know, but I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I don't really understand what her involvement was. I'd like to know more about that. But it's a good ad. We're going to see more of these. From the radio ads, I've got a source that says that they will run between March 27th and May 2nd. That's when the radio ads will run. So we're free of those for a little while. I haven't seen a lot of television ads. I don't know if they're on more than just social media pages, but they're coming. They're coming soon.
Absolutely, and this is going to be $1 million mayor's race.
Yes,
it's the amount of money that is going to flow through the media over the course of the next several months. Not just the primary, but the general election is going to be huge investment of money. And we know that Cheryl is going to use her experience. I mean, let's face it, she's been an elected official or in a political position working, whether it's working for the state or as a county commissioner for several years. I mean, she does have a ton of experience. She does. And her opponents do not. Cheryl has been county assessor. Mitch Daniels, while she was county assessor, he pulled her into the State Department of Local Finance, where she ran that department. She's been a county commissioner. She ran for state representative and lost.
That's right. I remember that. And
that was in District 77. And Cheryl sat down with me when I ran for that seat in District 77. She sat down with me and over coffee, and she gave me the best advice I've ever not taken, which was, don't run for it. And I did not listen to her, and I'm really sorry that I didn't. Her experience speaks for itself, and that can be good or bad. The questions that I think will happen from Natalie's side, and even from Stephanie Terry's side, they'll bring up a lot about her history. Let's face it, there were some controversial things that have happened as her time as county commissioner with some of the land purchases that she did personally of blighted property, which one could argue this was to try to make things better for the community. But some people looked a little on that as, are you just doing this for yourself? And I'm not saying it is one way or the other, but that's the controversy that lies out there. Mm-hmm. Cheryl has accomplished one other thing, which is that she got an endorsement in the primary from the FOP. It's huge. They don't do that. They normally do their endorsement in September for the general election.
On behalf of FOP Lodge 73 and the FOP 73 Political Action Committee, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. Appreciate you taking your time to attend this important event. Historically, the Fraternal Order of Police does not offer endorsement in primary elections. However, it is the belief of this organization that this may be one of the most important elections in recent memory for the citizens of Evansville and for the members of this lodge. The city of Evansville is facing crisis on many levels. Our streets have become noticeably less safe, even with the men and women of the Evansville Police Department seizing guns off the street at a rate never before seen. Violent crime persists. Murders, shootings, robberies, and a host of other crimes are increasingly occurring in city neighborhoods that were once believed to be safe for our citizens and their families. Leadership matters. The city of Evansville needs a mayor with experience, dedication, and tenacity to address the host of problems that we currently face. I stand before you today united with the over 500 active members of FOP Lodge 73. I stand before you today as well united with the over 500 associate members, 50 plus auxiliary members, as well as our families and friends. I stand before you today to offer the full endorsement and unwavering support of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 73 to the next mayor of Evansville, Cheryl Musgrave.
All right, so Cheryl got the early kiss from the FOP. That's a big deal. Remember, though, somebody told me this years ago, that endorsements do not win the election.
That's right.
You still have to do all the work of campaigning and everything. And Cheryl's going to campaign on infrastructure because, as a county commissioner, their road projects are huge for the county commission. She is going to run on crime, obviously, because she's got that FOP endorsement. And part of what I think swung that for her, more than likely, is the fact that she gave the county sheriff's department pay raises, and big pay raises are in store for the Evansville Police Department if she were to win.
You can see on her website and on her ads, this is a big deal for her. She feels that this is a huge topic. She shows graphs as far as the raises over the years, and she's very proud of this. And that is what I'm sure why the FOP endorsed her. She's showing her support and doing it financially and in their paychecks. So I can see why they would give her that endorsement.
Well, time really flies when you don't know what you're doing, and this is flown by. We are going to be getting all of these candidates in here. We're going to get Stephanie and Natalie and Cheryl all to come in and do shows with us individually, and I think it's a great opportunity because they don't, out campaigning, they get 2-minute stump speeches, and there's somebody sitting there with a stopwatch going, "Oop, you went 2 minutes 15 seconds," right? So for them to have the opportunity to sit down for a half hour and have a conversation about their vision for the city, I think is going to be great. And hopefully you're going to be able to join in those conversations.
I'd love to join. I wonder if the viewers or the listeners, do they want us to be really hard-hitting questions, or do we want to softball these folks? I'm hoping we get some comments and they can tell us how they want to treat them.
Do you know what I did with Mayor Winnicke when he and Rick Davis were running for mayor? So this goes back a few years, right? I was doing morning radio at the time, and I decided that I wanted to get them both on the air, Right. I mean, doing a morning, ha-ha funny type show, but I wanted to get them both on the air. So I invited the two of them to come to Donut Bank and play a game of Evansville trivia. Wow. And we gave them cookies for their points. And then they were allowed to steal cookies from each other.
That is wonderful.
So much fun. Who knows what's going to happen with
I think it's going to be great to hear from each of them individually and ask some good questions.
So that'll be coming up soon here on This Week in Evansville. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe. And thank you very much for sharing a little time with us.